Hey, hi, how y'all doing? Today I have a spoiler-filled vlog of Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I believe this is a video that you guys are very excited about, and I am very excited about it as well because I get to read this hopefully masterpiece. Like I haven't read it yet, so I can't say, but I'm really excited to dive into this one. So for those of you who are not in the know, Kingdom of Flesh and Fire is the sequel to From Blood and Ash, which is a new adult fantasy romance series that follows a girl called Poppy, who is the maiden, which means that she is never to be touched, never to be looked upon. She isn't allowed to talk to people, and on her 19th birthday she will be given to the gods. Our male main character is Hawk, who is a guard who has been tasked with guarding Poppy until her ascension. And as it is a romance, I think you guys can see where this is going. I really enjoyed From Blood and Ash. I gave it 4 stars. I thought that the writing was good. The fantasy aspects were a little bit mediocre throughout the beginning. However, there is a lot of intentional ambiguity surrounding the magical, fantastical, paranormal elements of this book throughout the beginning. So, I mean, kind of makes sense that I didn't really know what was going on. And based on the events of the second half of that book, I am so excited to dive into this one. So, last call for any of you guys who have not read From Blood and Ash and have not read Kingdom of Flesh and Fire yet. I'm about to do a spoilery recap of what we learned at the end of the last book before I go into this one. Thank you so much for watching this far, and I will see you guys when I'm not talking about spoilers in a different video. Okay, so we learned some things at the end of From Blood and Ash. Something that I did see coming and was happy to see it come into fruition is that our good friend Mr. Hawk is indeed Prince Castile, also known as the Dark One. Something I did not expect, however, is that he was a vampire. A lot of people say that they go into this assuming that it's going to be paranormal. I had absolutely no idea what the fantasy element in here was going to be when I started this series, but dear old Prince Castile, he is indeed a tall, handsome, brooding, slightly evil vampire, and we are here to experience it. We also found out at the end of the last one that the Ascended are indeed not the good guys that we think they are. If Castile is to believe, then they are actually the bad guys who spun lies against the Atlanteans to make out that they were the evil, when it is actually the Ascended who are vampires who have been created the craven when they cannot control their urges, and they take Atlanteans and hold them hostage so that there is somebody around to perform the ascension, which is actually turning people into vampires. We also discovered that Poppy herself seems to be half Atlantean, which makes sense why she is the maiden and she's not allowed to do these things, and they want to keep her because they are eventually going to take her, lock her up, and use her to perform the ascensions. And then we also had the very final page, the very final paragraph of this book, where we now know that Poppy and Castile are to be married, seemingly against her will, but my predictions for this is that Poppy is going to come around a little bit. And I do also have some preconceptions of a love triangle in this book, and I have no idea why I think that. I've just seen stuff that makes me think that there's going to be a love triangle in here, and I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about that, because love triangles, don't mind them, especially not even if they're well done, but if both of the love interests are desirable, then I can get behind that. But also with love triangles, I tend to be faithful to the first love interest, so I feel like whoever the second guy is in here, Hawk is going to be the man for me, and that is going to be what I'm shipping until the end of that series. Then again, I have been wrong before, because back when I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I was Tamlin Till I Die, and then I read A Court of Mist and Fury, and we all know how that turns out. So I'm not actually starting this book right now. I will be starting this tomorrow. However, tomorrow I am having a day off from everything, so I'm going to look a little bit like a potato, so I thought I would come and film this intro before I actually get started with the reading vlog part. But yeah, cue my experience reading this book. Once again, spoilers for this book. If you have not read it, then please vacate the premises. So I'm 2 chapters in, I'm on page 42, and something that I'm kind of enjoying so far is that it has picked up exactly where it left off. Like literally it's a continuation of the conversation they were having. There's a lot of recap in the last 2 chapters of things like, you know, in case you took a break in between the books. I only took 3 weeks, so it wasn't necessary, but I would have appreciated it if I had taken a break, because it isn't overly explanatory, but just like recapping small details, which is always helpful. helpful. But I just wanted to read to you guys the last thing that Kieran says to Poppy at the end of chapter 2, because oh my god, I swooned. Like, honestly, I'm a sucker for this dynamic. Can't lie. He has done things some might find unforgivable, things that would haunt your sleep and leave you with nightmares long after you wake. He may hate being called the Dark One, but he has earned that name. But he's the one thing in all the kingdoms that you, and only you, never have to fear. I mean, this is coming off the back of him ripping the heart out of somebody's chest because they dared to insult her and then threaten her. I love Hawke, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, you guys who are watching this, you have read this before, so you know more than I do right now. But I'm pretty sure that the love triangle in here is going to be Poppy, Hawke, and or Castile, and Kieran. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I like Kieran, and something that I really enjoy in books is a bromance, like a strong relationship, like a, what's the word? Oh my god, what is the word? I'm gonna Google it. Platonic. I didn't even Google it, like it's still loading. A strong platonic relationship between two male characters. There's just something about it that I really enjoy. Like, I used to go crazy for Lucas and Nathan Scott when I was watching One Tree Hill. I don't know what it is. So I don't want Poppy to come in between them, because they seem to be quite good friends. Kieran seems to have Castile's back more than anybody else at this minute. I mean, Castile's just pretty much killing all of his followers at the moment. We will see how that element goes, but right now I am enjoying this. I'm struggling to focus, but that is definitely a me thing. Like, I'm not in a super want to read mood, although I don't particularly want to be doing anything else right now. Poppy is literally driving me insane right now, because I'm on like page 140, and to be fair, this book is pretty slow going, because 140 pages and I think maybe a day has passed. Well, like 2 evenings, like one full day, one evening. Now it's like morning, daytime of the following day. And oh my god, so at the end of the last book, I've already mentioned this, he said that they were going to go and get married, and now she's just like, why would you marry me if you're going to trade me in? Like, oh, all of this stuff he doesn't mean, because he's just going to trade me in, and he's just going to trade me for his brother. And it's like, no, he's not. That is why he's suggesting that he will marry you, because he's not going to trade you in. And there was literally a line, and I should have like marked it so that I could read it to you guys, because she says something like, I might be this and I might be this, but I'm not naive. And I'm like, you are literally the most, not even, is naive even the word for it? She's just, I don't think it is, like stubborn, stupid. I don't know, like I get why she feels the way that she does, and I get that she's like trying to hold down her deep dark desire and the fact that she's like in love with him, even though she won't admit it. But I'm like, girl, come on, it's so obvious.
Page 154, and like Poppy is just so stupidly clueless about the fact that Hawke really loves her, and it's so obvious. Like, she just questioned, like, why would he marry someone he doesn't love? Well, Poppy, dum-dum. And then in this part, you're not just a pawn to me, Poppy. Don't lie, I told him. He opened his mouth and then closed it, seeming to rethink what he'd been about to say. It's so obvious.
Hello, my loves. I have had to travel far and wide to bring you this update because Curtis is doing the dishes and listening to music really loudly downstairs. But I'm on page 238. I haven't had much to talk to you about so far. One of the main reasons is, as I've mentioned, it is incredibly slow. We are still at the keep, and I'm like, what, a third-ish of the way through this book now? But I have a couple of things to say. One is that the chapter that I've just read is the one where Poppy like maims the guy, the ascended guy, is he called Lord Cheney? And that was badass. I like how when Poppy injures someone, like when she killed, was it like Lord Masik or something? Lord whatever he was, the guy who was awful with the Duke. Like when she killed him in the first book, she does, every time she does something like that, she does it like super dramatically. So in the first book, she chopped that Lord guy into tiny little pieces, and then in this one, she's just like furiously stabbing this guy. And there was a line that said about how many holes she put in him. So I do appreciate that about her, but I don't think I'm going to be giving this book 5 stars, which is really sad. And that is just because of how like Poppy is just so in denial. And I get it, you know, it is hard to believe these things, but just things like repeatedly throughout the book, she's using her ability. So when she went for a conversation with Alistair by himself, and she kind of thinks he's a good guy, but she doesn't know if she can trust him, so she uses her ability on him multiple times to figure out when he's being sincere. Now, she has used that on Castile like intermittently, but it's normally like when he's talking about his brother, so she senses emotions of sincerity when he's saying things like, oh yeah, we'll get married and that will also help me with my brother. But then she's not using it when he's saying things that are like not necessarily romantic, but more like dedicated to her, like how he keeps saying that nobody will ever hurt her and that she'll never have to be alone and and that she's beautiful, her scar's beautiful and all of that stuff. She's just not using her ability. And then she's kind of, now that the plan has been explained to her, she's no longer doing the thing where like no matter what he says she thinks it doesn't matter because he's going to trade her in. She's now in like just denial about this marriage thing and stuff, and it being just a way for him to get his brother. So it's still the same kind of thing, but she's just not being traded anymore. And I'm like, come on girl, like it's real obvious, and like you could just use your ability and you would sense the sincerity. She's infuriating me, especially in this book. I mean, there were things that she did that infuriated me in the first book, but in this one I think it's a little bit more annoying, especially because it is clearly just to kind of keep the level of angst up, but then the level of angst isn't there, kind of, and like so many things have happened. It's like, look, just trust him, just trust Cass, everything will be fine. Even if she doesn't trust him, you know, like just get your rocks off, girl, he's a hot guy. But then he is also annoying because she keeps saying stuff like when she was saying about being traded in and how he only feels a certain way about her because of wanting to find his brother. He's not, like, he's just avoiding it. Like, he gives her a bit of a funny look because it's obviously not true, but he's not saying anything. And I'm like, bro, if you just said the words, say the thing, just say it, and life will be a lot easier for everyone. Because like I understand with how he's lied to her that she is feeling insecure and like doubting him and things, but like why are you doing this, Cass? You're all causing me pain right now. Okay, so before I go into what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to say that I'm sure that I've seen somewhere that there is a love triangle in this book, but Castile and Kieran have a bond, and I'm on page 263 where Kieran is talking about the bond and how there is no stronger bond that exists than the type of bond that he has with Castile, and it's like something that elementals typically have with Woven that's no longer required. So I've been thinking about this for quite a while as we've been talking more about the bond, that maybe the reason that a love triangle ends up existing is because Kieran is feeling for Poppy the same thing that Castile feels, because he's feeling the emotions through the bond. Like there's been a few like offhand comments made that make it quite clear that Kieran knows that Castile's feelings for Poppy are real, and there's been moments where like he's been about to bring it up or Poppy's said one of the stupid things you keep saying and Kieran's been about to step in and be like, well actually no, and then Castile has cut him off. That could be a possible reason of why he would manifest feelings for Poppy. However, if the bond is so strong and there is no stronger bond than the type that Castile and Kieran have, then I don't understand how it could ever turn into a love triangle, because no matter what Kieran would ever feel for Poppy, his bond with Castile and not wanting to fuck him over and not wanting to like have Poppy cheat on Cass, even though they're not, well, they're together, but Poppy is going off the basis that it's a deal that they've made and that it's not real, even though Castile is quite obviously in love with her and she's in love with him too, but she's being stubborn. But like if theirs is the strongest bond that exists, then there is no way that that would be a thing. And if that does become a thing where he goes against the bond for Poppy, that just doesn't make any sense. Also, just realised how Twilight it is to have a love triangle with a vampire, a werewolf and a mortal girl. So I'm confused about how that develops, unless it's like a poly thing, but then there's nothing in this book that's led me to believe that it would be a poly thing so far, especially because Poppy isn't like attracted to Kieran. I think she said like he's decent looking, but there's nothing between them aside from they spend quite a bit of time together because he guards her. So I'm on page 342, and finally Kieran is being the voice of reason. Poppy has gone for a walk on the beach with him after this whole debacle with Castile waking up in the morning and having like black eyes and just being out of control essentially. And Kieran has finally been the one. I'm so glad that he's here to tell Poppy that she's fooling herself, that she's lying to herself, that Castile obviously cares for her, that she obviously cares for him, and she's just in denial. And honestly, I'm just 342, guys. Page 342 pages before Kieran has come in spitting facts, and I'm just so fucking grateful for him, because hopefully we can now move on with the romance elements of this and Poppy can break out of her cycle of denial. One of my favorite things about Kieran is just how deadpan he is and like sarcastic, and he just delivers everything with a straight face. So this bit on page 343, really not been long since I last checked in, really made me laugh, because there's this whole running joke where Poppy just asks a lot of questions and Kieran's just like done with her shit, and it says, I wiggled my toes in the sand once more. I asked him about that. This is my surprised face, Kieran murmured, and when I looked at him him. His expression was the same as always, bored with a hint of amusement, and yeah, that just made me laugh. Okay, so chapter 24, page 350 and 351. Poppy is going to serve herself as dinner to Castile, but from this inner monologue we've just had, she's like she's come to terms with all the things that Kieran has told her. She has realized that Castile actually does care about her, and I'm now really excited to continue because Castile's been missing for about half a chapter, maybe a little bit more, and he's going to come back, and hopefully he's not going to do something that fucks this up and we're actually going to get some progression. So I'm on page 368 now. The updates are coming thick and fast, which isn't the only thing I think that's going to be coming thick and fast soon. But Castile came back from his wander around all day, cooling off and stuff, and Poppy is acting like almost a reasonable person. Now we just need to get Cass acting like almost a reasonable person, and it is happy days. I'm happy about this character development, and I believe that chapter 26 is gonna get a bit smutty, so I'm gonna get on with reading that, and then I think I'm going to try and go to bed because I've read a lot today and Kelsey really needs to catch up with me. Also, we're still on page 368 at the end of chapter 25, and I have thoughts on that love triangle now. I don't think it's going to be a love triangle. I think it might be a threesome. So that's going to get real interesting, and on that note, I'm actually going to go hopefully read myself some smut. Okay, so I'm on page 380. I'm going to be wrapping this up and going to bed now. I have just finished chapter 26. It was a very good chapter, and I do definitely think that I am on the right lines with the three-way thing as opposed to the love triangle. That is what I've been seeing. Those are the vibes I've been getting. So sorry for you guys who've already read this and seen me banging on about a love triangle that probably doesn't exist. Elements of that scene were fire, but there are elements that are annoying me. This whole pretend thing that Poppy and Castile have worked out, where it's like, because they both like each other, they both love each other, let's be real, but they're doing this whole thing where Poppy's like, I can't love you because of all of the things that you've done, and he's all like, it's just a business arrangement, I just want my brother. Because of all of that, they've agreed to have like a pretend arrangement where they can get off and it not have anything to do with them actually liking each other, even though I think Castile is just going along with it because Poppy doesn't want that. But this whole thing, like, she's gone through, I think it was a chapter and a half where she's like, oh my god, no, I do actually care about him, I'm falling in love with him, he obviously cares about me because he doesn't want to trade me for his brother anymore, and he would have let me go free if I hadn't agreed to marry him. So she's just done all of that. She's come and offered her blood to him because of the whole thing about it being intimate and Atlanteans not feeding on anybody else when they're in a romantic relationship, when they love somebody. And then we had some smut, as well as the smut while the blood exchange was happening, or the feeding was happening, and then he's asked just like Castile is baby, we must protect him at all costs. He asked if he could hold her and she agreed, but he asked and then he said, can we pretend? And she didn't negate it, and it's annoying. She didn't say like, I don't want it to be pretend anymore, and I'm like, girl, come on, like, the guy, he didn't think she was gonna say yes. Just give him something. Just give him something because he deserves the world. So I'm on page 436 and I just had a real hallelujah moment because Poppy said to Castile, finally, I don't want to pretend I'm Poppy and you're Castile and this is real. I'm having a hallelujah moment for many reasons, that being a very important one. The second one is that we are in the hot spring scene, which is really exciting. But I told Kelsey about my hallelujah moment and she responded with this.
Oh, don't be happy about it for too long, because it doesn't fucking last.
So, yeah, at the minute, I'm real happy. I'm real happy to continue because I kind of like the end of the chapter is in the middle of the hot spring scene. But Kelsey leaves me sad for the future because it seems Poppy is once again just going to flip back to her old ways of thinking. But I have hope for the future. Just found out that Cass is promised to another, which is something that Kelsey actually theorized earlier on, and I wasn't sure whether that was the thing that was going on, but yeah, apparently he's betrothed to somebody else, which is kind of annoying, you know, like I don't feel like we need another point of tension in this book with Poppy already just flip-flopping, because now she's took something that Castile said when they were leaving the hot springs to mean that real to her means something different to him, and it completely doesn't. I'm guessing that this is a political marriage anyway, but just knowing how Poppy's feeling and how she's still in the whole Castile doesn't really love me stage that she's been in for both of the books actually, most of both of the books. I don't feel like she's going to take it well, and it's just going to further reinforce her I can't fall in love with him thing, which I'm not too hot on, to be fair. Literally half a page after Poppy found out that he's engaged to somebody else, she's losing her shit, and I'm like, it's probably political. It's probably political. He probably had nothing to do with this. Breathe. Calm. And breathe. So on page 468, after this whole thing has blown over and they've had like this massive raging argument during dinner, which to be fair, really enjoyed that, just because of like how everybody got invested in it, and then Poppy stood up for herself, which I'm really glad about, because despite all my moaning about her, I do like her in a lot of reasons. It's just this constant denial that's getting to me, especially as it does mainly seem to be in the name of angst. Like, let's make this as angsty as possible, so let's keep adding things that make Poppy sink deeper into her denial, instead of kind of like working through it and them actually coming to some sort of conclusion, I guess, some truth, where they're actually being honest with each other. I'm on page 468 and she's had this big spiral. She's realized that the door's unlocked, and because she spent her life in captivity, and then the main gripe that she has with Castile is that he then kept her in captivity afterwards, after she'd chosen him for herself as the only thing that she'd ever chosen for herself, and then to find out it was all a lie and that he was going to keep her in captivity and use her, like sent her over the edge. So she's realized that the door's unlocked, and the door's been unlocked for ages, and she just never noticed, and she's finally free, and she's come to this grand conclusion that she loves him. She's always loved him, whether it's right or wrong, whether she should love him, she loves him. So I'm hoping that this is it now. She's come to the realization, and like she's gonna stay there, but I'm not holding my breath, and I fully expect her to just switch back in like another 3 pages, which will seriously annoy me. Hi, it's me again. I finished reading the page I was on, and the end of this big paragraph about how she accepts that she loves Castile ended with how she's pretty much just going to be a martyr because Castile doesn't love her, and it doesn't matter how she feels because she's going to do some good. She's going to save all the people. She's going to save her brother, and I'm just like, girl, please. So everything I said about the moment of revelation and it finally happening, and like, you know, things actually progressing, I take it all back, because if she doesn't accept that Cass loves her, then she's still going to be in this place of literally questioning and doubting everything. Looks like we're back to no progress. I just read chapter 33. I'm on page 480, and it was getting real promising. You know, they were having a conversation, they were having an argument, and it was quite clear that the lack of communication was coming to a head. Like, they're just not fucking communicating with each other. They had this big argument. It was real great. It was one of those arguments, you know, where we were gonna have declarations of love, but of course the sky is on fire. The fucking sky is on fire. Of course it is. I mean, it makes sense because we need some like dramatic fantasy conclusion to this book, but like I'm at the point now where it's just like a little bit too much. Like, I have a threshold for my drama and angst, and over the last like 50 pages I've just been losing my shit because it's just going around in circles. It's going around in circles, and we're not getting any sort of like resolution to these things. And they finally have a conversation. It's taken so damn long for them to actually have a conversation. It was an argument, but at least they were being like some degree of honest with each other. And the sky is on fire. I've actually you can't see because it's behind me, but I poured myself a glass of alcohol to deal with this book at this point, because I just need something to calm down the fires of rage inside me. But don't get me wrong, like, I am enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. And Castile, I love him. Like, he has his flaws. Part of the lack of communication stuff, like, it's not all Poppy, but obviously we're reading from her perspective, so we're getting it just like constantly from her. But he has lack of communication issues as well. There's many times where he could have said how he feels, or he could have said something when she's asked him a question that kind of relates to doubts that she's got. He could have cleared it up for her straight away, but he hasn't, which also stems from how she's behaved. But still, like, he's no better than her in that regard. But yeah, I love Castile as a character. Really enjoy him. So I'm on page 510, and I want to keep this real brief because I'm really excited to dive back in, and I'm also going to pour myself another drink. They're just about to get into the real heart to heart. Like Poppy's just said, I meant what I said at dinner when she said that all of the stuff that Castile's done doesn't really matter because she still loves him, etc. But I've just got to the story that he tells about Shea, and what happened with her, and it just really annoys me. It's one thing that's really bugged me throughout all of this book, is that Poppy is so fixated on what happened with Shea, because everybody said, like Alistair said, like, oh, it's not my story to tell, but she's my daughter, he loved her, and she's clearly dead. And Kieran's like, you don't want to go down that road. So what I've got from this, like, I've just found out that he killed her, which I get it, but like, wow. My interpretation of this throughout the book is that this is a deeply traumatic memory for him, and Poppy Poppy is just fixated on it. Like several times throughout the book, she's like, what about Shea? And it's like, it's none of your business. Like, I understand that you have doubts. I understand that you don't trust him because of the things that have been done to you, even though she does kind of trust him. But I understand all of that, even though it's really irritating reading from her perspective, having a flip-flop, believe that he doesn't love her, deny that she loves him. This thing with Shea has really grated on my nerves because it is literally none of your business. Like, this is clearly a very traumatic memory. Just the fact that he loved her and she's dead, that is something that he should approach her with in his own time if he chooses. And just the fact that she just fixates on it and needs him to tell her for her own validation really grates on my nerves. But I'm glad that that's out of the way now. I'm glad that we know what happened to Shea so that she will shut the fuck up about it and she can go on living her life knowing that he never really loved her because she betrayed him. I'm about to go into chapter 36 and I'm going to be going to bed very soon after I've had my second drink. But I'm excited to see how this conversation progresses because it looks like we're going to have some resolution to this whole, like, does he love me, does he not, before the third book. However, I was hoping that the battle that they're about to go into with the Ascended would be wrapped up before the end of the book, but this conversation is at least another 12 pages, which leaves 104 pages until the end of the book. And I just can't help but feel that because we finally got some resolution with the romance and they'll actually be a couple, that something's going to happen, like Castiel's going to get captured or Poppy's going to get captured, and then the third book is going to be about getting them back. I feel like it could be Castiel maybe that something happens to, if that is what happens, and then Poppy will have to get him back. I hope that doesn't happen, just because now that I'm about to get, fingers crossed, some kind of resolution to the will they want they romance, I can't be arsed with the book ending like that. Like, I really can't. I'm just thankful I only have to wait until April for the third book, if that is the case. I'm on page 560 and Curtis is watching football, so I've been relegated to the reading room in the interest of being able to concentrate while I finish this book and also vlog for you guys. But literally all I want to say right now is that I've just read the first chapter of the battle between the Atlanteans and the Ascended, and oh my god, Castiel and Poppy fighting together are a powerhouse and I love it. I'm a little bit scared for what's to come. Still don't know how this book's gonna end, but I'm gonna go and find out, and I've heard that there's some quite shocking moments towards the end, so we'll see how I feel about those as well. So Poppy just killed the Duchess, which honestly, thank the Lord. I'm just like, there's something, there's a spanner in the works because the Queen is not as she seems, and Kelsey told me to keep reading, so I'm guessing it is revealed in this book, but I just don't know if I want it. I don't know. I feel like this series, the two books have hurt me quite a lot already. So I'm like, I don't even want it to continue. I just want a happy ending because I'm just going through the ringer. But yeah, I really want to know what's going on with the Queen at the same time as really not wanting to know because I don't want to be hurt anymore. I'm just having a quiet chuckle to myself about how awkward Poppy is in, it's not the Blood Forest, it's the Forest in the Mountains, where she has had to sleep in between both of them for warmth. And just like how hyper aware she is when she wakes up and Kieran's rolled over, it just it made me laugh. Oh my god, I just finished it, and that ending, I did have a feeling as things about her heritage was like questioned, that one of the things that it could be is that she was a deity, or like the heartmate thing where the guy's love hadn't been granted eternal life and so he died of sadness. Like, I thought that from some of these historical tales, like somebody would be missing and they'd have gone somewhere else and like just lived somewhere else. And then you also have, I can't remember what the name of the Queen is she called? Ileana, and the lover that was made into an Ascended was called Elspeth. So I was trying to work out like if the beginning of her name meant anything, but like holy fuck, that ending was just like fire. I'm so excited for the next book. One of my patrons in my Discord, could have been Chloe, said that you can read the first chapter of Crown of Gilded Bones online, so I am going to do that soon. And just like, I need to talk to Kelsey because my phone died and it's on charge, and I'm going to come back to you guys tomorrow because I'm filming anyway and give you like a full kind of like conclusion to this vlog and a wrap up of my thoughts. But oh my god, considering I thought that the first book started off mediocre with the fantasy elements, the fantasy elements in this were so good. Like, it's undeniable that Poppy irritated the fuck out of me through the middle, but like the conclusion, like the last last, I don't know how much I read today, 100 pages of that was so good. The battle scene, amazing. Could have done without the travel scene just because I knew it was coming to the end of the book, so I knew that something was happening. So the travel through the Scotos Mountains I could have done without, although it was important because the gods showed themselves to Poppy. But yeah, like, dynamic conclusion. So excited for the next book, and I'll be back tomorrow when I'm a little bit more coherent. I'll be back tomorrow when I'm a little bit more coherent. So it has been a couple of days and I finally composed myself enough, I guess, to talk about Kingdom of Flesh and Fire as a whole. It's hard because by the time I get to the end of each one of these books, I'm absolutely adoring it and I'm like 5 stars, but that's not accurate because you guys saw my reactions through the middle of this. Poppy was infuriating. She was just a nightmare to read from, and I do understand, like, if the romance is established too early, then it makes the reader less invested because we're reading for the romance. It's a fantasy romance. We know there's good smut. That is what we're reading for, and we are rooting for these characters. So they can't get together too early, and don't get me wrong, I love me a long ass book, but this could have been 100 pages shorter because the first like half of this takes place over a handful of days. In fact, most of this probably takes place in the space of like a week, and while I'm quite used to slow books, so pacing is not something that I overly think about now, I'm happy to read half a book that takes place over 3 days. It just felt really noticeable to me. But then if you think in terms of the way that Poppy was behaving, it's only taking place over a handful of days, so that kind of makes it okay because she's only in this state of indecisiveness for like less than a week. The thing with Shea, I have to say, really did bother me, the way that she was fixating on that and kept asking Castiel about it when it's something that like I feel he should disclose when he's ready. It's not like he's holding back something that's going to hurt her. It's his own personal life, like a relationship that he's had that ended incredibly badly, and he doesn't need to disclose that to her. It's not relevant information that she needs to know, and I really did not like her fixation on that. I also think that some of the dialogue could have been trimmed, and as somebody who writes occasionally, like I don't even call myself a writer in any way, shape or form, I get really stuck on dialogue as well and wanting to have these like super dramatic conversations with the characters, but it was just a lot. It was just a lot of dialogue and a lot of telling and things happening in conversation as opposed to showing. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is extremely enjoyable. I loved the plot twists. I love the smut. I love Hawk. I ship Poppy and Hawk, even though Poppy is infuriating. And the thing about Poppy is that the only thing that I actually dislike about her is the fact that she was so stubborn throughout the beginning of this and was not really opening her eyes, was questioning everything, wasn't kind of reading Castiel's body language or what he was saying. She was just stuck on this notion that she had. Everything else I really enjoy about her. In terms of what kind of character she is, I would really like to read a book like this with a character that isn't a virgin and isn't inexperienced and isn't completely naive, which is something that I like about Sarah J Maas, because the majority of her female main characters are not virgins, and I like that because I personally find that to be more realistic, but that could just be speaking from my own experience. But I like her as a character. I like that she is trained with weaponry. I like that she goes out there and fights on the front lines for the things that she believes in. We all know that I absolutely adore Hawk / Castiel. I also really love Kieran, just the way he deadpans everything and is really blunt and unimpressed by everything. I absolutely adore, and I do believe that there is going to be a threesome in book 3, which I'm actually really excited about. It's not something that I've read before, but I'm really excited, especially after the feeding scene in here, which was probably one of my favorite scenes of the book. In terms of the plot twist with Poppy being like this child of the king of the gods and now being the queen of Atlantia, I'm really excited to see how that develops in the 3rd book. However, I did look at the synopsis of the 3rd book and it says that there are going to be like more heartbreaking betrayals, and I kind of just wish we were past the point of betrayals, especially if it is in terms of Poppy and Hawk. Like, I don't feel like we need that drama at this level where they're now married and have accepted their love for each other. But speaking of betrayals, one thing that I was hurt by in this book is the betrayal of Becca. Assuming it was a betrayal because we don't see him after he abandons Poppy at the end, but that really upset me because I really liked him. He was a really sweet character. So yeah, gave this 4 stars, really enjoyed it. Still holding out hope that one of the books in this series is going to be 5 stars to me. I really did think it was going to be this one. Sadly, it didn't quite get there. It was very almost there. It's a very high 4 stars just because I enjoyed this so much, love the romance so much, and Hawk so much. But yeah, still holding out hope that Crown of Gilded Bones, I think is the 3rd book, is going to be my 5-star read in this series, and I think there's 4 books in total, so even if it isn't, we have one more shot. Speaking of Crown of Gilded Bones, I will be doing a spoilery vlog with that as well, because you guys really love the Blood and Ash one. You asked for this one, so I am going to assume that you are interested in seeing a follow-up where I read the 3rd book. But that is it for this video, guys. Leave in the comments, I don't know, whatever you feel like leaving in the comments. Aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I was gonna say I'll see you guys next week, but that's not right. If you head to my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.